Hello everyone, welcome to this video discussion on linguistic and interactional features of Internet Relay Chat. So this discussion is based on the research of Christopher Wherry. Now the very reason why I would like to discuss this one, focusing on the linguistic and interactional features of Internet Relay Chat, is for you students to compare and contrast the features of the chatting systems before and the chatting systems that we have now in social media. So this is one good way for you to picture out the differences in terms of the features present before and now. So to begin with, allow me to define what IRC or Internet Relay Chat is. So IRC or Internet Relay Chat is a protocol for real-time text messaging between internet-connected computers created in 1988. So this was a traditional way of chatting with people in a specific community, virtual community, and connecting with people across the globe. It is mainly used for group discussion in chat rooms called channels, although it supports private messages between two users, data transfer, and various server-side and client-side commands. So there are also other algorithms that I could not discuss further as it's not my expertise, but Internet Relay Chat is compared to the modern chatting system that we have. For example, we have the Messenger and also the chatting system available in other social media platforms such as Instagram and also in Twitter. So this is how IRC looks like. So if you notice, the interface is really that traditional. It's the appearance of an old computer system before. So still the messaging is here. It's present in the interface. It's just that there are also specific features that we need to understand better for us to really understand how IRC works. And since this is a traditional chatting system, while it still exists now, but it's rarely used since the advent of social media, but it's also good that we explore the features of this internet relay chat for us to also understand and appreciate the features that we have now in the modern chatting systems. So as an introduction, increasingly, forms of computer-mediated communication are emerging that enable conversation to take place in real time through the medium of written language. So, if you are to base it on our current experience, we can definitely say that the number of virtual communities available now will allow us to communicate better with the people digitally or virtually. And it also, or these social media platforms have also provided us the best means for us to communicate with our loved ones across the globe. So we have synchronous computer mediated communication, which can involve people from all over the world communicating in sophisticated and highly conventionalized ways within electronic zones that can be said to constitute virtual communities. That's according to Reingold in 1993. So if we are to compare it with the current chatting systems, we have various synchronous computer-mediated communication. And one good example for this is social media. So when you exchange conversations or when you communicate using Messenger of Facebook, then that's an example of synchronous computer-mediated communication because, let's say, two people or a group of people are engaged in chatting, okay, or in exchanges of messages at the same time, okay? So that is an example of synchronous computer-mediated communication. So if we are to understand better what internet relay chat is and what its features are, it's good that we look at a brief sketch of the interactive written discourse. So there are three main types of interactive written discourse, and these are: first, we have textual communication. So textual communication is used by individuals to speak to one another privately and is often directed towards carrying out work-related tasks. For example, the exchange of emails, okay? Or when you use Messenger for work purposes, so you communicate with another person to exchange essential information. We also have role-playing adventure games constituted through type conversation and the language of computer programming. Now, if we are to compare it with the modern gaming systems that we have a lot of available online platforms for this, even virtual or digital communities where gamers exchange conversations with one another. So for example, when gamers are playing online games, they have also chatting systems available. So they can exchange conversations with one another, most especially if there are teams involved in an online game. And then, of course, we have the chat systems. These are social spaces made available across the internet in which people converse and interact. So we have a number of chatting systems available in the modern media platforms. So let's talk about discursive properties of internet relay chat. So I already introduced you to what IRC is. So one feature of the language produced on IRC that is immediately noticeable is the organization of conversational sequences and exchange structures. So that's something that you could look at, not only in the context of IRC, but also in other chatting systems available. So when you talk about features, here are some aspects that you might want to consider. First one, you can look at the addressivity. Second one, you can consider the abbreviations used as well. And then you also have the paralinguistic and prosodic cues involved in the chatting systems. And lastly, we have the actions and gestures used by the discourse makers. So if you look at these features, you are looking at a virtual community holistically because you consider all aspects of language use. So let's talk about first addressivity. Okay, so here are some examples of discourses which were taken from the internet relay chat. So let's take a look at the English translations of this one. So we have here, where do you put the C? Oh, excuse me. And then we have another set here. There's a girl, where? And then we have another one. What the hell does that mean? What are you yapping your lips about? Now, in the context of addressivity as one of the aspects being explored, the one thing that you need to look at is whether or not there is this addressee-addresser relationship. Okay? The addressee and the addresser are already signaled in advance of the body of the speaker's utterance. That means there is an exchange of conversation between two people involved in a virtual community. Okay? And addressivity means, for example, if you are the one answering or giving feedback to a previously mentioned discourse or a previously typed discourse, then that means you are directing your response to a preceding discourse. Okay? So there is addressivity there. Meaning, or simply put, there is addressing-addresser relationship when there is an exchange of information between two or more people. Okay? Now, if we are to contrast it with this set of examples, you can see here that there is no addressivity. Okay? In this context, it is omitted depending on the situation. Okay? For example, if you would like to greet a person, meaning there is no directness in terms of the greetings. Let's say in a chat system, you would say, good morning, hello. So that means the good morning or the hello there as a discourse would be addressed not only to a single person, but to all of the people involved there in the virtual community. Okay? Or when you say, how's everyone? Or how's everybody doing? So that means there is no specific person who should answer or respond to that discourse. So there is no addressivity. In that context, addressivity is omitted. So that's one feature of internet relay chat, and even in the modern chatting systems that you could look at, whether or not there is addressivity. Another one is the use of abbreviation. Cicero argues that physical constraints such as the amount of breath available to human speakers influence the length and form of written and spoken discourse. So on IRC, a combination of spatial, temporal, and social constraints act as important limiting conditions that influence the size and shape of communication. So there are a lot of things that we need to consider. For example, in the IRC context, factors such as screen size, average typing speed, minimal response times, competition for attention, channel population, and the pace of channel conversations all contribute to the emergence of certain characteristic properties. So for example, if we are to compare internet relay chat to modern chatting systems such as Messenger, then we could see that there are also factors to consider when chatting with people. For example, you need to consider the interests of the people whom you are communicating with. Second one, you also need to consider the length or the brevity of the discourses that you make, considering that you may bore or you may annoy a person when they are encountering lengthy discourses or brief discourses, should I say. Or, for example, the level of engagement in terms of being involved in an exchange of conversation. Let's say this person tells you a set of information and then you just reply with a thumbs up or a like. Then that person could have a different understanding of how you responded to his or her discourses. So a lot of factors need to be considered when we talk about abbreviation. So that's also one aspect that we could look at when analyzing features of chatting systems. So here's a set of discourses taken from IRC. Here, it's very common that there are syntactically reduced forms. For example, acronyms and symbols, clippings. We also have omissions for phonological reduction and pronouns. So for example, if you look at here, the pronoun your, instead of spelling it out as Y-O-U-R-E, okay, or apostrophe R-E, short for you are, it's shortened in this way, which is YR, considering that there might be some limitations with the number of letters, okay? And then also with the word goodbye. So you notice there's no letter E in this word, okay? There's an omission also. Another one is pronoun omission. So instead of directly stating who is the addresser in the discourse, there is pronoun omission by using symbols for reference. So if you look at this one, these people use these symbols to refer back to the person who is saying this discourse. So that's also a unique feature of IRC, or internet relay chat. So another one is with abbreviation still, which is common in French-speaking channels. For example, instead of saying hi again, French-speaking virtual or digital discourse makers use the word RE instead, or re. And then we also need to consider paralinguistic and prosodic use. Some of the most interesting features of the language used on IRC are the result of a complex set of orthographic strategies designed to compensate for the lack of intonation and paralinguistic cues that interactive written discourse imposes on its users. Now, it's very unique also, although others would say that it's typical, that there are orthographic strategies present not only in IRC but also in modern chatting systems. Now, as netizens or digital discourse makers, we have this tendency to make our own style, our own branding in terms of how we message people. So for example, we use emojis or emoticons, or sometimes we use shortcuts for us to emphasize certain things. And that's one of the things that we could look at when we talk about features of chatting systems. For example, here, you can see there is reduplication of letters in this set of discourses. So instead of saying cool, like C-O-O-L, why would a person spell it this way, right? With three letter O's and three letter L's. So that is for maybe for emphasis purposes or for prosodic use, which means the elongation of the sound involved here. Okay, so instead of saying, okay, cool, like personally, like in the chatting system, you could use this feature to emphasize the same sound that you could do when you speak it, okay? Another one is with this word, bad, and then this emotional expression, okay? So there's reduplication of letter W. We also have the use of punctuation marks, which could create pauses or indicate tempo. So for example, here, the use of periods or dots to emphasize elongation of emotions or maybe a thinking process. So that could be one. Or the use of hyphen to create short pause. Also, capitalization could mean emphasis. So when you write words in all capital letters, that means you are emphasizing the word. For example, the word wow, which means that there is somewhat like an interjection of a strong emotion. Okay, here, another unique feature of an IRC or internet relay chat is the use of 3 asterisks, which denotes action. So for example, if you use this one, that means the next discourse would signal that there is action involved. Okay, so for example here, when a word is enclosed in asterisk, that also means action. So for example, if there are 2 asterisks there and in between there is a verb, that means it's like the discourse maker is signaling that if it could have been done personally, it would have been done that way. Okay, so that is another typical feature of an internet relay chat. So another thing that is very common not only in IRC but also in modern chatting systems are the graphical images. So the use of these words, but if you notice before, emoticons or emojis are not or were not yet available. And that's why people before, when they communicate, or for example, when they would like to make graphical images, they combine icons or, yeah, they combine icons, okay, or punctuations or symbols, okay, for them to create a graphical image. But now, Good thing is that in the modern chatting systems, you have already the GIF, you already have the pictures, we already have the memes, we have emoticons, emojis, and other things that we could include in our messages. Now, in conclusion, I'd like to emphasize that in analyzing IRC or Internet Relay Chat, focus on exchange structures, forms of addressivity, abbreviation, prosody, and gestures. And this one is true not only in the context of IRC, but also in the modern chatting systems. So if you wish to conduct a research on, let's say, the chatting system in the modern social media, for example, Messenger, okay, or how people interact through Twitters, the comment sections rather in various social media platforms, you could actually look at this and focus on the exchange structures, okay, the addressivity, or the use of abbreviations, gestures, or graphical images. And communication on IRC is shaped at many different levels by the drive to reproduce or stimulate the discursive style of face-to-face spoken language. So it's as if like these people communicating or chatting through virtual communities are mimicking what is really happening in the physical world. So instead of doing it physically or personally with a person, and provided that there is this virtual community available where they could chat and exchange conversations with, they instead, or these people instead, use ways or strategies for them to make another person or make a group of people feel as if the communication is done face to face. So that's something that could be well understood in the context of IRC and other chatting systems available in modern social media. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions with regard to my discussion, you are free to post them in the open forum, and then later on, I'd be glad to answer each one of them. Thank you very much for watching this video discussion.